Hi, I'm Stacy. My research paper is on medication compliance by patients. As you can see about some of the facts about medication prescribed and the cost associated with non-compliance, it is an issue. I chose this because I know I take medications on a daily basis for diabetes and other chronic conditions. I know I'm compliant with my medications, but my husband, on the other hand, not so much. The more I researched different areas that could be targeted for research, I found one article that helped me narrow it down. It was called Preferences for Patient Medication Information. What do they want? What is patient medication information? It's the sheets that come in with your medications that you pick up from your local pharmacy. You know the ones I'm talking about. They're either folded up in the bag or they're stapled to it. How many of you even take the time to look at it? I know I don't always look at them, especially if it's something I take on a daily basis. They provide specific information about the medications you're taking, such as what it's used for, how it should be taken, common side effects, what you should do if you have any serious side effects. So the purpose of this study is to see if patients had a preference of how the information was provided. And some of the areas I looked into could be how teaching by nurses could be done, potential side effects of the education of that, the patient medication information sheets or PMI, the reduction of number of medication that a patient has to take on a daily basis, and other tools to help reduce the non-compliance. So with the literature review, I had articles from teaching methods by nursing to other tools to help reduce it. And nurses, some of the studies I found, nurses were able to come up with a better way to teach your patients out of medication and improve their numbers with that. Another study that was done on the lack of education on the potential side effects, the researchers saw improvements, but due to issues that were beyond his control, it really never went farther than that in his hospital because couldn't get other units to do it. And as far as in the reduction of number of medications taken, there's a lot of medications out there that are combination drugs, or there's fixed dose drugs that by taking them they actually found that it helped reduce the numbers of non-compliance. And again, other tools, there were like phone calls, like weekly, say, hey, are you taking your drugs like you're supposed to? Or giving them pill boxes so they can set out their pills for the week. Or at certain times if they need to. And the PMI article gave me a place to start. In one article I found, it stated that the inserts that come with medications, there is no set standard on what needs to be included in them and such. And they also can leave you more confused than when you start, because have you ever looked at them little folded up little things that like you need a magnifying glass to read because there's so much info on there. Like, I really need to know the chemical compound of the medication that I'm taking. Some of them you need to even you really need a PhD in chemical engineering to even begin to understand what it's trying to tell you. And so it led me back, I went back to the medication information sheets because, like I said, I get them all the time. And all I think is, oh geez, just another piece of paper to throw out. The methodology for this study was designed around the fictitious drug so that the participants in the that was in the study wouldn't focus on the information about that drug, because it's not a real drug, so there's really no reason to really pay attention to that stuff. They wanted more so the layout and the design of the PMI is what they were looking for, not the information that was in it. And as you can see, there was a total of 90 participants. They were selected from 3 different groups. There was a selected specific immune disorder, other chronic diseases, and then 30 were from the general public. And most were done from a hospital in North Carolina, like one of 3 hospitals. So basically, the 3 hospitals, 10 people from each hospital was chosen for the disorders and diseases, and then the general public was provided by a focus group that had 3 major cities that they chose from the East Coast. And they were first contacted by telephone to see if they pre-screened for certain criteria, which was they had to be over the age of 18 and fluent in English. And one of the criteria to be excluded was if they were any type of healthcare provider. This is the example of the PMI. They asked about such things as what bubbles or OTC, which is the 2 examples here. As you can see, the bubbles are the rounded boxes, and then the OTC is what the current ones really look like as of right now. They're just square boxes with all the information. And then they also wanted to know what kind of font they preferred, Arial over New Times Roman, or if they wanted direction for use or important warnings about the medication first. And so, like I said, as a total of the 90 participants, they were surveyed and placed into categories of either the target medical group, the chronic medical group, and general population. And then each of those categories were sorted by sex, age, race, education, and income. There was 100% response from the 90 subjects that was done in it. And this is just some of the results that I have gotten so far as like the age, females to male ratio was, there was 81% females versus 19% males, with the highest age group in the category was the 50 to 59 age group. Race was about 66% of the participants were black, and 51% had a high school education or GED, and then 78% of them made less than $35,000 a year. And then this result on this one was preferenced by the study group. You had this dark pink is your targeted medical group. This is your chronic disease group, and this is your general population. And as you can see from this bar graph, that most people preferred the bubbles versus over-the-counter. Arial beat out New Times Roman, and directions for use first and important warnings. General population preferred the important warnings first, and the other 2 groups preferred directions for use first. And all these are done by proportions of the info received, of the answers. And then this one is broken down by by age group. Now you have, notice in here you have two that have no preferences because they did not answer either way on atrial or New Times Roman or direction or important warnings first, which they preferred. But you can see in this group that the highest age group that was representative had the biggest preferences across the board on everything. They preferred important warnings first. They preferred the Arial font, and they preferred bubbles over the countertop type. Which, if by looking at the different PMIs, that actually the bubbles are a little bit easier to read than over the counter. And this study was done to see what a patient's preference was when it comes to PMIs, and would it help, and it helps with their understanding of their medications and help with improvement in the compliance. And by improving the compliance, it would help reduce the costs associated with the non-compliance, such as issues that would arise from them not taking the medication to keep their condition under control, whether not using your insulin correctly, not taking your blood pressure medication, and such. And it showed that the older patients had strong preferences to have the important warnings first over directions for use, the Arial font, and the bubbles. And the significance of this study showed that patients did have a preference on how the PMI should be laid out and could lead to improvement in PMIs in the future. Because if they're easier to read and understand, more people, maybe that way, more people would actually read them and improve their compliance with their medications.